Welcome to the Dare to Multiply podcast. On this podcast, we help passionate Jesus followers become courageous, obedient disciples who impact their communities for the kingdom of God. I'm your host, Cynthia Anderson, a disciple multiplication coach and trainer.
And I'm Jenn Chang, a disciple maker and coach based here in Thailand. We have some amazing topics and guests coming up, great people who are taking risks to launch new discipleship movements in their areas. We're excited to learn from them and introduce you to their ministries.
So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any great tools or content coming your way. And I also want to mention we just introduced a new community and exclusive access channels for those who want to explore further or dive deeper into our disciple-making content. Check that out at multipliersmindset.com/DTM membership. We are so excited today. Jenn and I have a special treat for you guys.
We are bringing our husbands onto this podcast with us.
Yay!
I'm super excited about this. I think we both are looking for every opportunity to show off our husbands.
That's right.
But today, we're going to be talking about just some of the practical how-tos of how couples can work in multiplication ministry and lead together. I would say, Cindy, you and I, our dynamics are pretty different.
That's right.
But I'd say this topic is incredibly important for both of us.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be really fun to have Stephen and Todd on. And so we'll be right back with that in just a moment. Are you busy but not seeing the fruit you long for? Dissatisfied with your present level of impact on those around you? Or frustrated with traditional methods of discipleship that don't seem to be effective? If so, the Getting Started in Disciple Making Movements course may be just what you need. Inside the Getting Started program, you'll get access to a step-by-step proven approach to making and multiplying disciples. Not only will you receive 25 short and practical video teachings spread out over 6 modules, but you'll have a chance to connect with others for group coaching via our monthly Zoom calls. And even more importantly, you'll become part of a global community of like-minded people from all over the world who are passionately committed to following Jesus and impacting others around them. If you want to get unstuck and begin moving forward as a disciple who makes disciples, I encourage you to go to courses.dmmsfrontiermissions.com and sign up for this powerful program today. And now to today's episode. All right, here we are with our handsome husbands, Stephen and Todd. Welcome to the Dare to Multiply podcast. Super excited to have you guys with us. Yeah, and we want to dive right into this topic of how we lead and disciple together as a couple, as a team. What's that look like? I know there are a lot of people with lots of questions about this, and we're so excited to have you guys with us. It's really an honor that you guys would be willing to join us. So thank you to both of you. We want to dive right in. So let's throw it to Stephen and Jenn. How would you guys describe kind of your dynamic as a couple as you lead and disciple people together?
Yeah, I would say that our dynamic is very side by side. We probably do most things together, whether it's working with a national partner or leading DBGs, Bible studies with non-believers. We led a team together for multiple years. And I would say even though we are very side by side and we do most things together, we also have pretty distinguished roles. We have things that we're good at, things that we're not good at. Stephen covers a lot of my faults. I try to do
vice versa.
I try to do the same for him. But yeah, how did we even get to this point? Because it was a journey.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other since elementary school, but probably didn't start to do ministry together until we were dating or maybe when we got married. And so I was the one who maybe got a vision for going overseas first. And then you eventually kind of were working through some things. But it was definitely gradual. It wasn't like we were always on the same page together at the same time. And so we had to communicate a lot and figure different things out, like those giftings, in order to make this dynamic work. It was pretty messy at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to hearing more about that as we go through the show. But Yeah, for Todd and I, we also have known each other for a very long time. We met in high school and we're high school buddies before we ever started dating. And we started doing ministry together when we were in youth group. We were on the same leadership team together.
Oh.
So even before we were romantically involved at all, we were doing stuff together for the Lord.
Nice.
And I remember my parents saying about Todd, he would make a great husband for you because he's somebody who helps you make your dreams come about, and he's right there and he's working so well with you. And I at the time laughed it off because we were just friends. But that was kind of prophetic, I think, from my parents. And our
Wow.
dynamic is also, we're very much a team, but usually I'm the person who's speaking and upfront. That's not something Todd enjoys. And he's the behind the scenes guy making so many things happen. When I travel, he does all the ticketing and all that kind of stuff behind the scenes. And he's more behind the scenes guy, but we're very much a team. I would never have been able to accomplish what I have if we weren't a team.
Yeah, I must say we had also a bit of a rough start kind of working out what it meant for us to use our giftings and what that looked like. I think sometimes we were a little bit stuck in oh, well, this doesn't fit the traditional way that we've seen people do this. And I think sometimes we had a little bit of struggles
We tried to be somebody we weren't.
trying to be something we weren't.
Oh, same.
And boy, yeah, that got us in trouble quite a number of times. And
we were miserable trying to be the traditional model. And that wasn't good for our marriage, to be honest.
Yeah, so that actually took a few years to kind of get that ironed out. But yeah, as we kept at it, it does. We were persistent, and I think we've come a long way.
That's great.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I definitely tried to. I think the model we saw was always man in front and woman behind or at home. But when we got married, my mom apologized to Stephen because I can't do a chore. She said Jen was never taught well, and so we had to figure out what that looked like too.
Well, I tried to be the piano player and Todd the guy preaching, and we were miserable. I play the piano really badly.
I'm sure it's beautiful. Okay, but I'd say there's so many topics to cover. I know we're not going to hit them all, but something that we've all kind of talked about before is that for couples to really work together, make disciples together, a shared vision is really important. And then from that vision, having some clarity. We already talked about it a little bit about what your roles look like, roles that don't make us miserable. So what does that look like for you guys, Todd and Cynthia? How did you guys get to that unity and figure out your roles? And yeah, I'd just love to hear more about your story.
Yeah. Well, like Todd said, it's been a journey, and it took us a while. I remember, and I've referred to this on the podcast before, reading the scripture that says that he gave each one individually the gifts that he desired. And I was reading that one day and showed it to Todd, and I was like, God chose what gifts to give me and to give you, and they're not wrong. They're right. They're the right gifts. And if he wanted you to be the preacher up front, he would have given you that gift. It would have felt like you have this anointing for that. And it's okay. Let's be who we are. And we kind of made that shift. It took, there were bumps along the road, but I remember that passage of scripture just really helping us make that change to, okay, I'm going to be who I am. What God has gifted me in is right for us. And we also kind of went through a period of people getting to know who we were as a team.
Right.
I remember times where we would go to a pastor's meeting or a missionary's meeting, and people would walk up to us and they would completely ignore me, and they would only talk to Todd.
We had that.
Like, and Todd would be like, talk to her. She's the one who knows about that. And
I call
it was
it
awkward.
the eye contact test.
Yeah, but over time, people also got to know who we are, and people who know us recognize that nothing Cindy does would happen without Todd, and they recognize his gifting and my gifting, and even if he's not up front, that we are a team. So it takes time for people to get to know you as you get to know yourself. Anything you'd add?
Well, I was going to say, just as far as that shared vision, I think that was so critical and foundational in the beginning, because we both had that. First, just that we were both really felt deeply that calling to missions and what that was all about. And I think as we went along, we both had similar ideas about, what that was going to look like for us, as far as, the focus of the kind of ministry we wanted to do. And I think, there was some refining of those things and what part each one of us played in doing that. But I think we both could cheer each other on, because we were, we had that same sort of foundational idea of what we felt called to do.
Yeah, your win was my win was your win. We're on this, we're going after something together, and yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
just
right.
that
Really
we could
helped.
support each other in that, as we.
Yeah, took steps forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you
Well,
guys? How's that
we can
been
see how
for
you
you?
guys do support each other. Yeah, for us, it was a little bit of a journey, that shared vision. I think Stephen was ready, felt called by the Lord to go overseas.
We did go on a short-term trip together
did.
at the same time, and that's where the Lord kind of opened our eyes. But I think he just kind of spoke it more clearly and confidently to me more quickly than Jen. Jen had to work through some stuff.
Right. And I had a lot of baggage. I had a lot of expectations of what my life was going to be like, and it didn't involve quitting any sort of jobs or not making a lot of money. And so Stephen actually had to be pretty patient with me, because we were dating at the time. He saw in me actually a passion for the unreached. He saw in me how when I was doing ministry, I would come more alive, but I was the one who was slow to figure that out. But I think just through a lot of conversations, through a lot of me having to walk with the Lord through surrender, we did get on that same page of, we want to be in Thailand, we want to make disciples, we want to pursue multiplication. And then the clincher for us was leadership. I felt like I had, kind of like what you were saying, Cindy, I had a leadership gifting and I didn't know what to do with it, because every model I'd ever seen was, the woman's at home, the man, the husband's out preaching. And Stephen has a lot of those qualities. He's actually a good speaker and he's quite strategic. And for a long time, I tried to just copy him and do the same things. And I just am not as good at those things. And so we started to realize that there were giftings that I had. I don't know. I think you actually were the best at clearing the way and advocating for me and helping me understand what my role would be.
It was just really funny because Jen mentioned, like one of her big fears was, if I get married to Steve and go overseas, am I going to disappear as like the missionary housewife, just taking care of like a bunch of kids?
Which is not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad. But
thing.
that was a fear she had. And it was when she finally was able to verbalize that. This was after many fights through like a lot of conflicts. I was like, what would make you think that? I'm the one who cooks the food at home. I just cooked tonight's dinner. I didn't marry you to do domestic stuff. Again, not that that's bad, but specifically for our dynamic, I had seen her giftings. And the other thing was like, we were leading a big team when we first launched to Thailand. It was 13 people, including us. And I was like, there's no way that I can lead all 11 other people by myself. I need your help. And I was expecting that. But I didn't know how to communicate that to Jen. So it just took a lot of us working through that before it became clear, this is how it makes sense for you to lead together with me. And it's not going to be the same, but we're going to help each other in this.
And I think
so
for that shared vision, Stephen actually had a mentor who gave us a good word, because we were asking all those questions. What about marriage and ministry? Do they compete with each other? How do you prioritize one over the other? It seems really hierarchical. And I can't remember the quote.
He said, loving God is loving my wife, and loving my ministry well is loving God. And they are all intertwined together. It's not just like some people would say, it's obviously God and then marriage and ministry. And in some ways it does make sense, that hierarchy, but in a lot of other ways they're intermingled, and it makes sense to just have it all work together. And so
yeah, because if we have that shared vision, then if Stephen's going out to read the Bible with somebody and I'm home alone, I'm not resentful of it. I'm excited because it's something that it's our ministry. We're a team.
Right.
And so his success would be mine as well. And so that's how they've actually fed into each other and not competed.
That's so good. Shared vision is so key. And I think, we both have seen that, though we came at it from in different ways. We've seen how getting to shared vision and also valuing one another's giftings, calling them out, encouraging one another's giftings, honoring one another's giftings, even when they're different from your own. Sometimes you're going to have couples will have the same giftings. I've seen that too. Some you're really different. Yeah. Most of the time, God brings different kinds of people together in some ways, as you fit. But shared vision and recognizing one another giftings is so key. Another really important thing is communication. We've referenced it a bit, but what are some of the ways that you guys, Stephen and Jenn, communicate? What are some sort of best practices that you've developed over the years that help you communicate well? When you're working together in ministry, you've got to communicate or it's not going to work. So yeah. Tell us about your best practices there.
This was an unexpected thing in marriage. And when I was single and I would get tired, I would go to my bed and put my head down on the pillow and go to sleep. But after we got married, Jenna would be like, "Are we going to talk about our days?" And I'm like, "Okay." And so it was like another hour where we would talk about, what happened that day. And that actually bled into ministry and leadership because we ended up debriefing almost everything together. You're more of an external processor. Right. I'm internal, but it really helped us to be on the same page.
Yeah, I think because there's always so much to talk about, whether it's what's going on with the team, what's going on with the ministry, how we're doing, what do we want to eat for dinner? Like there's always something that needs to be discussed. And I think that I use the analogy a lot that we're very spaghetti, like all of everything kind of crosses over. We're not very compartmentalized in our lives. So we would just find ourselves debriefing all the time, talking like just whenever thoughts came up. Stephen gets a lot of epiphanies in the shower. And so we try to debrief. We try to write things down. If we're going to different meetings, then I'll try to crystallize everything and write it down immediately after so I can talk about it with Stephen, and he does the same.
There was a term from a book that I read, or I guess we both read it, that was shared consciousness is the goal. That we're sharing. We're all on the same page. We're making decisions based off of a shared pool of understanding, and that just makes everything go smoother.
So we have to keep contributing to that pool. And then we do things like we share calendars. We are texting back and forth. Our text thread to each other is just a train of ideas.
Yeah.
So we're not very organized, but we are trying to talk all the time to create shared consciousness.
Yeah. I think, your dynamic's a little different because you guys don't have children. Right. And so your freedom of when you can talk is different from when you have kids at home and you're grappling with that issue, of not always talking about ministry in front of the kids, but needing to talk about things. And Todd, what are some of the things that we've done that have helped with our communication?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we came upon or kind of happened upon at some point was the idea of having a issues and decisions meeting. Sometimes we call it a logistics meeting, and that we have once a month or once a week actually. And it's kind of the idea that we would have a particular set time when we knew that we could talk about things that needed to be talked about, so that kind of in the busyness of the day when I think Cindy tends to have quite a few meetings and have a lot she's trying to get done. And so for her, being interrupted in the midst of all of that, it really disturbs her
A flow.
flow of getting things done. And
So you're a little like that too.
and so, of course, we communicate about important things through, sometimes just even in texting or in messaging and things like that. Oh, we need, we can work those things out that way. It actually works pretty good for us. And but if there's things that are kind of outside the realm of, maybe outside the realm of what we're the work that we're trying to get done, and it's kind of has to do with our family or has to do with some future scheduling or things like that, or yeah, we know that, okay, well, maybe it's not that critical that we talk about this now, but we know that during our scheduled time that we can put that on the agenda, we can talk about it. And it's not we would always go out for breakfast, and then after breakfast, we would have this time together. But I think we both found it freeing. I mean, I wouldn't say it was not a time of tension. It usually wasn't. It was just, okay, well, this is the time we have to communicate. And okay, how are you feeling about this? Oh yeah, what about that? And
It actually really relieved the tension, because we weren't being interrupted in our work and, the busyness and the stress of the work part, to talk about, oh yeah, what are we going to do about Stephanie's birthday? Did you send a gift yet? So we know that, okay, on Saturday we're going to have breakfast and nice time, and then we're going to sit and we're going to talk through all those upcoming birthdays and travel plans, and we have space for it in our lives. I think that's creating space to communicate. That's not kind of in the context of the constant, really, really helped us take some of the stress and pressure off and be a little more proactive, so we weren't like on the fly all the time trying to cover that thing, or trying to do it on your date night. I mean, that happened for quite a few years, You go on a date night and you end up talking about all kinds of work stuff because you haven't had time to communicate in a proactive way in other times.
I will say, even though we're very spaghetti, like Jen said, just all the time, we did have to set some of the boundaries like that.
That's true.
Like, hey, let's, on the way to dinner for date night, let's just get out that last bit of ministry debrief. But like when we're having dinner together, let's just not talk about ministry unless we both agree about it, or like, whatever time before we go to sleep or when we wake up, let's just like have a little bit of boundary. I needed it.
That first thing in the morning, I was ready to talk, and Steven's like, "Can I please finish my coffee?"
Yeah.
Just settle into the day a little bit.
But what sticks out to me is that our dynamic and y'all's dynamic is really quite different, but it works. What works for y'all what works, and what works for us is different, which is great. Each couple is going to be different.
In your breakfast, were there any? I'm just curious because I wonder if we should adopt this. Actually, were there any like questions that you made sure to ask each other, or was it just different every time?
Yeah, we usually just started by making an agenda. What are the things we need to make decisions about and talk about? It wasn't so much how are we doing as a couple. We had other times for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it was more decision making that needs to happen, that we've got to communicate about before we can decide that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, some those certain kinds of decisions that, you just need to have that space to be able to, okay, well, now we've talked about that, we know where we're headed, or we know, okay, well, we have to get that information before we finish making that decision. But, it was just a good time to.
And, it sounds kind of formal, but we both came out with our to-do lists. And so we start the meeting with how'd you do on those to-dos,
Oh, nice.
But it really helps,
Very multiplication.
Yeah, it really helped us make progress. So for us, it's been a really good best practice. Another thing, that's been a best practice for us has been reflective listening when there is a conflict. And we can talk about that too. I've written on some blogs about that, but just when things did get, our spaghetti was really that we were a tangled web of conflict and it did not pull apart easily, And so when we were in that kind of a scenario, which we hit at one point in our marriage, we had to untangle a lot of misunderstandings. And
Wow.
that really took reflective listening. And okay, it's your turn. You're going to talk about this issue, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to tell you what I hear. And then next time it'll be my turn, And doing some of that reflective listening communication helped us untangle our messy ball of conflict and get to a place where we're hearing each other well again. So that's been another thing for us. But yeah, conflict's a reality. We have certainly had conflict in our marriage.
Yeah.
You guys, I know, have had some. Tell us a little bit about your story related to that and how you've solved those kinds of conflicts when they come up.
We have a funny story from the first week that we started leading together. Do you want me to? Yeah. So
it's your story.
So we had a few on our team already, and Jenn and several others quit their jobs so that we could start support raising, getting ready to launch for Thailand. And so we had another single gal from the same pre-field training program, but a different state, coming to join our team. We'd never met her before. And, she's pretty new to us. But the first day we picked her up, and Jenn and this girl named Kate they're sharing a bedroom, and because we're not married yet.
And she's like such a good girl. Like, she just
very conflict averse too.
Very obedient, very like soft spoken.
But Jenn and I are having an argument about something. And again, we've not learned anything about how to lead together. And we're there, and she's in the corner, and I can just feel her starting to shrink, like trying to disappear into the corner as we're arguing. And I dropped this one little nugget that I knew would be bad, but I said it anyway, which was, just remember who your boss is. And I said that to Jenn.
Ooh,
he drops
that's a trigger.
Says, don't forget who your boss is. I'm sharing a room with Kate. Steven turns around, shuts the door. As he's doing that, I had already cocked my arm back, and I had thrown a jacket at the door as he was leaving.
Ooh.
And it hits the closed door. I look over at Kate, and I'm like, can you believe men? And she was just like, yeah, sure. I can.
Really, really great first start in front of Kate. And I know that, many other married couples leading or working together or not probably have had the, I want to throw something at my spouse. Mm-hmm. But we learned quickly after that to be careful not to have open conflict in front of our teammates, because we wanted to have a unified kind of front together, but also because we wanted to honor each other. Like, we didn't need to have all of our junk out in front of other people. And just without fail, we would be on our way to team meetings that we were about to lead, and we'd have a conflict. And we would say, in the car, right as we're getting out, just like, hey, let's put a pin in it. This is something I learned from a good friend of mine. He's like, if we're having a personal conflict, let's put a pin in it, and we'll come back to this later, but we got to deal with this right now. Sometimes that didn't work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we had to take a few more minutes and work it out. But that has been a good little best practice for us, is if we're having an issue and we need to jump into some kind of ministry setting, we'll both commit to picking it up later. Mm-hmm. And then I would just say the other thing, this is more of a marriage thing than it was a team leadership or making disciples thing, but we just tried to take don't let the sun go down on your anger to be a real best practice for us, that we would try to resolve conflict before we go to bed. And we haven't done that perfectly, but I would just say 99% of the time we've done that, and it really helps.
Yeah. And I think just learning about we have very different conflict styles, Steven and I. Like, I tend towards being a little more aggressive, passive aggressive, all the aggressives. And I'll move towards really quick resolution. And Steven,
I need some time to collect my thoughts and get to a good place
to process a little bit. And so even something as simple as a pause on my side, which feels so hard to just wait on him, and for Steven to move towards me a little bit faster than he'd be used to. Right. Just little things like that, knowing each other's conflict styles, trying to respect them, but then also trying to serve one another by maybe moving before we're quite comfortable, like before we're ready, almost, I'd say has helped us a lot too.
Yeah. I like put a pin in it, because that's not saying, it's not avoidance. It's saying
Right.
we will come back to this. And it's also not pretending in front of your team, which feels so
Yes.
disingenuous. Like you're
Right.
in the middle of a fight and you go into a team meeting, you're like, oh, lovey-dovey. You can't do that, right? But being open and yet not blah all over your team members, where
Right.
you're putting them in a very uncomfortable position. They want to honor you as team leaders. And so put a pin in it. I think that's a really good practice, or put a pause on it. I like this, I love that scripture. I think it's a great ideal. We, to be honest, haven't always been able to resolve bigger conflicts before the sun went down. Sometimes, we didn't have the freedom to stay up till midnight.
Right.
Talking and talking and talking. So it was like, we are committed to resolve, and we're together in unity and love before we go to sleep. So I think that sun comes down thing doesn't mean you necessarily work through and come to complete, agreement on something, but you're together in spirit and heart, and you're not angry at each other and sleeping, in separate sides of the bed or whatever it is, but you're coming together, you're loving each other, saying, we're going to get through this. Yeah. So that's good. Well,
If I can make
just
one comment too, is when we were first married, in my younger years, I was somebody that tended to be very conflict avoidant. I didn't like conflict. I pulled away from it, and it caused problems in our relationship. And Cindy wanted to talk about things, and I would not want to talk, or I would just be very, brief, or, and part of it, I was still growing into who I was and understanding my own feelings and thoughts. And I tended to be very, I think, compliant in some ways. I didn't really, but I would prefer to do that than to have a conflict, And so that was quite a journey. And took us a while as I kind of grew and understood my own, feelings and thoughts and desires about things and how to express those well. But yeah, we had quite a journey with coming to a place.
25 years in, all of a sudden you had a lot of opinions. And it was great. I was like, wow. Okay. Yes. Now we're in. And so I think what I'm trying to say with that is just that there are different phases in your marriage as you mature, as you grow as people.
Yeah.
And you keep learning about each other and making those adjustments to honor and make space for one another and their gifts and experiences.
I feel like a lot of wisdom coming our way.
Well, I think both ways. Yeah. And it's so good that we can share each other's stories. And I'm sure the people listening have their own stories and their own journeys. But what I'm hearing is shared vision, find your communication style, honor one another's personalities and giftings, and be a team together. But any encouragement that you guys would have for couples who are trying to do this but really struggling or finding it really difficult?
Yeah, I would just say there's one really sweet thing at the end of our first term, even though we had fought almost every day for the first year on the field because we were brand new, married, new to leadership, new to the field. But by the end of our first term, when we were doing our debrief, we said one of the best things from our first term was how God had brought together not just our marriage, but our working together in marriage. And it was such a sweet gift from the Lord. And I think my encouragement to any couples that desire to work together or make disciples or lead together is that it really is worth it, but just be prepared to do the hard work of honoring each other. I think that Philippians 2, a servant heart of looking at others as higher than yourself. And also just a ton of communication is required to figure out what works in your dynamic. Because just even in this quick talk, I mean, y'all's stuff is so different from how we do things. And it's right. It's right for it to be that way. So it's a lot of work, but it really is worth it. And it can be really sweet.
I really appreciate what you said about honoring one another. And I think that is so key that that you learn how to appreciate one another and how to express it to one another, that you value them. It's just really important.
Yeah. I would add that too. Just two are better than one. If you have been gifted by God with a spouse, you're better together, and there may be moments where you think, oh, if when I was single, I had so much freedom to make my own decisions and choices. And, I didn't have to discuss everything, before I could decide those things. But it really is a gift. If God gives you that gift, two are better than one in life, but also really in disciple making, and the fruit of what you're going after in God together is going to be greater because the two of you are working together in unity as a team. And it's a blessing. And it's also a model. I just wanted to encourage that when you do this well, and definitely we have not done it perfectly. We've made so many mistakes, but when you get to that place where you're doing it well, fairly consistently, it is so honoring to God, and it is such an example to the unreached around you, to the lost around you. It shines who Jesus is more brightly than so many things you say. When people have watched the way that Todd and I have interacted together, it has been attractive because it's Jesus in us, and it attracts people to the gospel in you. And so it's worth it to work it out, how you work and live together as a couple in ministry and disciple together. Todd and I are in the midst of working with a group of people that we have over for dinner. And in this particular situation, it's a group of guys that really relate well to Todd. And my biggest job is to cook for them, but I'm there together, which is kind of unusual. It's not the way it's always been, but I'm cooking for these guys and just creating that home environment. We're doing it together. And I'm so for what's happening in these guys' lives as Todd's pouring into them. And when we do it together, we're better together. It's worth it. I agree with you, Stephen. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's hard to top that, but yeah, just agree. I think it did take work and it did take time. And I think in the beginning, it felt very impossible for me. How are we going to get clarity on all these situations? How am I going to do this without dominating my husband? Like, there are so many ways that I set myself up to fail.
What was our biblical stance on this, or theological considerations? That was a big part.
Right. We had, we've never seen a model like this. And so I think it's easy to wallow in how difficult it is, but it really has been, like you all have been saying, just really worth the effort. And it's been really fun. Like, it's actually been something strangely strengthening for our marriage, even because now not only are we, married and have, life as husband and wife, but we also are a team together, and we get to bear fruit in ministry together, and we get to cheer each other on. And there's so many ways where I forget to do something or I'm bad at something, and Stephen will rescue me, or he'll remind me to do something, or he'll lead out in what he's good at, which is strategy, and I'll come in with relationship. And it's just fun to see us working side by side. Like, there's a sense of achievement that I feel like we couldn't get otherwise in our marriage if we weren't working together in the same ministry with the same vision together. And I think the last thing that I would encourage people is that you don't have to look like us. Like, every couple's different. Every couple has a different, unique set of giftings, has a unique set of works that God's calling you to. And so if you feel like this is something I want to pursue with my spouse, but I don't know if I can look like Todd or Cindy or Stephen and Jen, that's okay. You really shouldn't. I think the work starts with hearing from the Lord, speaking with each other, getting on the same page of what's your vision, what are the things God's called you to as a marriage, and how can we make that happen with who we are and how he's made us. And so it shouldn't look the same. And it's an exciting journey every day.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I think the last thing that I want to close with is just the power of affirmation has been really, really key in our
really
marriage and in our ministry. And, we can take advantage of each other. You're married, and, that's the person you rely on, that they're not gonna, so you don't always give that appreciation and affirmation to your spouse that your marriage really needs and that your ministry needs. And so, it has meant so much to me I remember times where I've spoken to an audience or something, and just afterwards when Todd said, "You did really great. I'm so proud of you." It For a wife, that delights my heart. It means so much more to me when you say that kind of thing to me than anybody else in our lives. And I know there's times where I've said that kind of thing to Todd as well. And just that affirmation, to make it a habit, to make it a practice, sometimes we've had times where it's like daily appreciation. Okay, we're going to take a couple minutes before breakfast, at lunch, whenever it is. Okay. And I'll even say, I know this is a little funny, but I'll say, "What do you appreciate about me today?" And
Great
or he
question.
might say that to me. And even then, it just still means a lot. And it's not because he doesn't genuinely appreciate me. He just maybe needed to be asked, and then he could say it. But that pattern of appreciating each other has meant so much to us and helped us so much. So yeah, I really want to encourage everyone, appreciate your spouse and take time to speak out those words of appreciation. So yeah, well, our time has gone by really fast. I can't believe it's already been 40 minutes into this call. And we're going to be right back, Jen and I, with a couple of key takeaways and an action step for you.
Are you ready to unlock your potential as a disciple maker? Then it is time to dive deeper into the principles that are changing lives with the Multipliers Mindset course. This transformative course accompanies the book, The Multipliers Mindset, Thinking Differently About Discipleship by Cynthia Anderson. These lessons will help you not just through reading about a multiplying movement, but how to actively live out a lifestyle that leads towards movements. And here's the best part. It comes with a practical workbook, which is designed to take your learning even further. This workbook guides you step by step to apply what you learn and to impact the lives of lost people around you. With easy-to-follow steps, uplifting lessons, and timeless truths from the book, this course equips you to make disciples and to start groups that multiply. Visit multipliersmindset.com to step further into the work God is calling you to do. Let's multiply together.
That was fun, Jen. I was so happy to have the guys on with us. And yeah, it's always just a joy to be with you and Stephen and hear your stories. That was really fun.
It just felt like we were talking across the dinner table. It was
That's
so good to
right.
see you
Yeah.
guys.
I think both of us came away like, we have more things to talk about than we have time for. But next time we have dinner together, we will hit on some more of these
Absolutely.
things and keep learning from each other. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I think, why don't we just share some of our key takeaways, and then I want to be sure we give our listeners an action step to put into practice. But I think for me, one of the things that I really came away with was, as we said, shared vision is really important, but it's a journey. It's a process of getting there. So don't be discouraged if you're not quite there yet, but aim for that, work towards it, to a place, because that really strengthens you when you have that shared vision. Talking about the importance of communication and a commitment to communicate. It's going to look different for everybody, but communication is really key to doing this well together. Be patient. It takes time. We're a little further on our journey than you guys are, but be patient in the journey of learning how to do this, and it's worth it. I remember you guys talked about how it's worth it, and both Todd and I said that as well. It's worth the time, it's worth the investment to work together, and then minister out of the strength of your marriage. Stephen referred to this, that it's not, you know, the classic Jesus and then your marriage and then your ministry, but it's Jesus, our marriage and our ministry are all part of one whole. And the health of our ministry flows out of the health of our marriage and vice versa, and the health of our walks with Jesus. So kind of not looking at that hierarchical thing, which can put you in some weird positions, but just being together in that. And then don't try to be someone else. Be yourself.
Good.
And even for people who are listening and you say, I'm not like either Jenn and Stephen or Cynthia and Todd. We're totally different. That's so okay. There's different models, there's different ways that this can look, but honoring and respecting one another and valuing one another is so important. How about you? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what struck me as we were discussing was how many stories were just about how much we cherish each other's, like how much we cherish our spouses. Like, I think there's so many books on marriage, there's so many books on ministry, there's so many tools, and I think those are so important. Like, I loved the tool, Cindy, that you talked about. What was it? Reflective listening.
Mhm.
I loved that. I love the best practice of setting aside time, making time to communicate, making time to get on the same page. But I also think so many of our stories were just about us loving each other and honoring one another and learning how to honor one another, um, when it's just the two of us, or when it's in front of a team, or when it's in front of the people we're doing ministry with. I think so much of just the joy of being married does flow out into our ministry, and they don't have to be competing. Ministry and marriage don't have to be a zero-sum game. They don't have to take
Mm.
from each other, but they can feed into each other. And then another thing that I took away was just how God creates every single person differently. And
Mhm.
for a long time in my story, I got stuck on, well, these are the types of giftings and roles that a wife should have, and these are the types of giftings and roles that a husband should have. But when I read the Bible, none of those giftings are really assigned to a gender or assigned to a
Mhm.
role. And so I think if I would give a takeaway, an application step even, is for, if you're married and you want to work with your spouse, to look at yourself and figure out what kind of gifts you have and how that can contribute to the shared vision you have. I think knowing how God has gifted you, what strengths you have, is really empowering and really joyful. And having a spouse who can speak into that and you into their lives, is really uplifting and encouraging. And
Yeah.
lastly, I was struck by how many of our stories were about ways we've messed up before we got better. And just the last bit of encouragement of,
Mhm.
if God is good enough to bring us through, it has been good enough to help you, Cindy, or has been good enough to help me and Stephen, then there's no one beyond
That's right.
helping, in
That's
terms of
right.
God having the resources, having the wisdom, having the love that we need in order to be able to work with our spouses.
Yeah, I love that, and we didn't say this actually, in the dialogue with our husbands, but, both Todd and I and you guys have had counselors who have helped us, and I just wanna mention that if you're struggling and your struggle is getting really severe, get help. It's
Yes,
okay to need help. We've needed help.
definitely.
Find godly people who can help you through the struggle and, don't yeah, that's not unspiritual in any way. That is one of the best
Absolutely
things you can
not.
do. If you're struggling and this is getting really hard, get help and, yeah, work through it because you can. We're a testimony that you can.
That's
And,
right.
God has God has great things ahead for you. So, here's your action step. I talked at the end about appreciation and the value and importance of that. So, I wanna encourage you, if you are married, then go in the next day or 2 and take time to mention what you appreciate about the other person, and even see if they might be willing to make that a daily or at least a weekly habit in your life to express appreciation in specific ways. I think if there's one thing that has helped us in marriage and ministry more than anything else, it's the habit of regular appreciation. So that's your assignment. God bless you guys, and we'll be back next week with the next episode. Bye for now. That's all we've got for this episode of Dare to Multiply. One thing that would really help both us and other people who might like to listen in is for you to rate and review the podcast, if you haven't done that yet, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'd also love to connect with you on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Feel free to message me with any topics, questions you'd like addressed, or guests you'd like me to interview. Until next week, then, please remember, no matter how ordinary you feel, God's dreams for us are always bigger than we can imagine. Let's dare to trust Him for a greater harvest.